I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
What's up, After Buzzers? Welcome back to the Letter for the King After Show. We are talking season 1, episode 4. We are coming to you live from our homes due to the recent events surrounding COVID-19. I'm ready to talk some TV with you all. This was such an exciting, fun episode. I'm ready to talk about it. And I'm your host and moderator, Bryant Santos. I am your lover of all things kings and queens because I'm a queen myself, and I wouldn't be able to do this show without my amazing panel of knights. First, I have Toree Weaver with me, who is our resident Game of Thrones fan and lover of the kingdoms. Hey, girl, how are ya?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm super excited to talk about this episode because there were so many things that were happening.
Yes. And we usually have Benjamin Chanel with us. He's not able to be with us for this episode, but he will be back with us for the next ones. Ben, we missed you. See you soon. All right. So, Toree, just let's get right into it. What were some of your overall thoughts of this episode?
So this episode was super, super jam-packed. We get to see Tiuri kind of use his powers and kind of understand them just a little bit more. And we're also seeing a lot of these storylines finally cross paths. And I know we talked about that previously in our other recap. We're kind of waiting to see how these different characters are going to interact, kind of see how they're going to react to one another. So that was super exciting. I'm kind of sad because it's coming to an end so soon. We only have 2 more episodes left. So I'm super excited to see what's going to happen.
For sure, 100% agree. And I love Viridian so much. And this was definitely a really great episode for him. And like you said, I love how it's finally interacting. We're seeing this storyline intersect between, I guess it's Viridian and Turi, because we see that Turi is, of course, a shaman. So definitely, I feel like we're going to end with a big battle. But that'll come later for AfterBuzz predictions later on in the show. And we also have an amazing special segment called The Greatest Battles in History. So we'll talk all about that later on in the show. So let's jump right into the recap of the show. So Viridian starts the show off. He kind of sees what's happening. I guess he's having like kind of a psychic moment. I don't know if it's like a psychic or a flashback because he's looking at, I guess, Turi's father, the shaman. And he basically sends for the armies, and it's I think it's starting to really heat up. So we move over back into Lavinia and Turi, who basically Lavinia is talking to Turi as they're walking, just saying, I saw that power, you finally have access to it. And they're continuing their quest to try and deliver this letter. Turi is not going to stop until he delivers this letter to somebody. I love this little moment they had where basically Lavinia's like, I think you and I were going to be unstoppable. And Turi's like, you're just shameless. So I thought it was a fun little moment between them. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. That was kind of just us being able to see their relationship kind of develop, their friendship, their alliance and stuff like that. They kind of started as an unlikely alliance, and now we're able to see that they're both bringing something to this adventure that they're on. There's so many things happening. Also, the fact that she decided to stay on his journey with him and not go down that path was super
Yes.
interesting. And it was actually brought up again later in the episode when they were on the boat and just kind of hanging out. And Turi kind of broke it down to her like, listen, I understand that you're scared and it's okay to be scared to go down that path and try to find your mom. And so that was a very interesting moment because we don't really get to see her backstory and kind of get an inside look at how she's feeling because she wears this hard exterior. So it was really interesting to kind of see Turi be able to break down that wall and kind of get some emotion out of her.
Absolutely. I loved it. This was definitely a great episode for Lavinia, especially. We saw so many different sides of her throughout the whole episode. And I'll talk a little bit about that boat scene you mentioned in a little bit. Let's move into the novices. So we see this little fun, cute little moment of them. They're trying to still figure out their path. They're still trying to get to Turi. So we see them kind of peeking out at a farm, I guess, and they're trying to steal these horses. So it was just so interesting to see that. They're still planning. And we always talk about this, that they're kids and they're making these decisions, but it's so crazy that they have to do all this craziness at such a young age, So that all happened. And then we pan over to, again, Alianor and Iridian. So that was definitely a really interesting dynamic that I enjoyed because she got on her horse, she rode off, and I thought she was pissed. Like, she seemed really pissed, right? She rode into the woods, followed by the knights and then Iridian. And I loved when he came to her and she was like, I'm not mad at the situation. I'm mad that I didn't think about it first. And I was like, whoa, girl, like it was so cool to see that because I love how she's accepting it because as we both talked about this in these times, these kind of marriages are not for love. They're for alliances, you know? And obviously we see this little connection between her and Iridian that we were hoping that she was going to get a marriage of both alliance and love, that she could have gotten the best of both worlds. But now she's realizing that, you know, we're just pawns in this whole strategic chess game that everyone is playing, and we might as well make the best of it. So she gets down into her little, like, I don't know, those are like knickers or her little white gown, jumps into the pool and brings Iridian with her. So what did you think of that whole dynamic, that just fun little scene of just so much going on?
Well, I definitely appreciate it just because in this series, you know, we have these serious moments, we have these life-threatening moments, and it's interesting and it's really refreshing to just see light-hearted moments, even moments of comic relief with the novices. So it was always interesting to see those little exchanges. But I do love that she wasn't, you know, the stereotypical like over dramatic, emotional queen who's upset because she didn't get what she wanted. She's definitely
Yes.
using her strategy. And I think in this series, a lot of viewers have, it's easy to counter out. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't really have a lot of context yet in the series. We haven't really seen her owe too much just with her brief exchanges. So it was nice to kind of see where her head is at. You know, she is a smart woman. She knows exactly the game that she's in, and she knows what she needs to do in order to kind of get things to work in her favor. So it was really interesting to see, you know, where her head is at and what role she wants to play in all of this happening.
Absolutely. Like I said, I love that moment. I loved how she kind of just said, we have to just make the best of it because this is the world that we live in at this time. And I love that so much. So let's move into Lavinia again. So now we get to the boat scene, her and Turi. So she is so amazing of just really just doing whatever it takes to get what she wants or get what she needs, you know. So she obviously tries to trick her way onto the boat, trick her and Turi way onto the boat with the captain, and the captain literally says, girl, thank you, next. Like, I am not falling for that. And so of course Turi has to step in and offers his ring, which I guess is made of silver or some kind of precious metal. And they get on the boat, but Turi is forced to sleep with the horse and Lavinia can stay in the passenger area. So what did you think about that whole thing of Lavinia just doing whatever it takes at all costs to get what she needs to do?
Well, I loved in that moment because I believe the ring is actually the ring that the Black Knight gave to Terry to kind of prove that the letter came from him. And
Yes.
so at first I was like, oh, okay, like I have nothing to worry about. She's definitely going to get this ring back, whether it's now, whether it's in the next episode. I knew for a fact she was not going to give that ring up. And I know she doesn't really know like the context of the rings. You know, she wasn't there when Terry got the letter and the ring. So she didn't really know its importance. But just because of that mindset that she has, I knew that she was going to get it back. Like she was not just going to give it up easily. So I loved that. I loved that exchange. It just showed again how they're able to use each other to get what they want. Like this is a great alliance that we're seeing form in front of our eyes.
Absolutely. I guess she kind of pickpocketed it back. She passed by the captain on the way in and she just grabbed it back. So it's crazy that you brought that up because I almost forgot that. I almost forgot that the Black Knight said, you need this to prove that this letter is from me, which is so crazy. And like you said, I guess it's Lavinia's smarts and everything that she didn't even
Mhm.
know how important that ring is, but she helped him get it back. So I love that moment. And she's right, they're unstoppable together. They really are building up each other, they're working on each other's strengths, and I can't wait to see how they end this series and how they just basically take back everything. So I love it. All right, so then we move into, of course, another little fun comic relief moment with the novices. And they're sitting around the campfire telling their scary stories. Um, and it was just fun to watch because they are such great like comic relief or just that lightheartedness we needed in this show, which I loved. Um, so what do you think about that? What do you think about that little scary story moment?
Yeah, like I said, they definitely bring the comic relief to this series. I mean, when you think you're about to forget that these are a group of kids, they're right there to remind you. So this campfire scene wasn't just about them kind of bonding, but it also to me kind of revealed that even though they are kids, even though they don't really know, you know, what they've gotten themselves into, they're a little bit aware of of the seriousness of the situation. You know, they've
Hmm.
known things that have happened in history. They know the outcome, I mean, the possible outcomes of what could happen. And so it kind of showed that even though they are little kids and they don't really know what's going on, they've been listening, they've been paying attention. And I think, you know, this knowledge, even if they are just stories that people either believe or don't believe, it's going to help them in the long run to kind of make these decisions.
Yes, for sure. They are so strong together and kind of a similar dynamic between them all of them, as well as Turi and Lavinia, where they're kind of like helping each other, building each other up, and they're working better together, which I think is probably one of the overarching like stories of the show, is that, you know, helping each other will always, or for the most part, help everybody, you know. So I love that. Then we go back to Turi and Lavinia, and they're on the boat, and I really like this exchange because Turi was basically playing around with the letter, and Lavinia interrupts him talking about like money or all this different shenanigans she's trying to get into, and Turi basically says like, why does it have to always be about what's in it for you? You know, like if the world just did things for other people, we'd be in a better place. So I love this because we saw Turi's like moral compass come out again. His whole hero, not really complex, but just the hero journey that he's on, of he's so like strong-willed and he's so compassionate for others. So what did you think about that? Do you agree?
Oh yeah, definitely. It honestly, I think it's a question that we were all asking. You know, when she made the decision to continue on the journey with Tyrion instead of going separately on her own path. I mean, you're kind of on this journey with him, so it was a question that I wanted to know as well. You know, what is your motive here? You're on this journey where you don't know what the letter says. None of us know what the letter says. You don't really know how the king is going to receive the letter. You don't really know how this is going to play out, and yet you are worried about what's in it for you. And it's just kind of like, why? You know what I mean? It's because it's just
Yes.
like, what are your motives? Like, what is this for you? I mean, we knew that she was on the journey originally to get to the path, and then when she made the decision to not do that anymore, it's just kind of like, well, I thought all of her secret motives kind of went away with that, but clearly they didn't. So now I'm kind of questioning, you know, what are you going to do when it comes to time where they finally make it to the king? God willing, what are you going to do? Maybe if there is no reward, maybe if he just gives you a pat on the back and sends you back on your way, you know, how are you going to
Yes.
react? What are you going to feel from that? Because that could very well help happen. You know, they're still kids. No one really believes what they're doing or what they say half the time. So who's to say that this is actually going to end well at all? So I don't know. I don't know. I think we'll see in the next two episodes how she's feeling about this journey and the outcome a little bit later. So I'm excited to see that.
Definitely. I 100% agree that I want to know what her intentions are, or maybe it's, I mean, it could be love, you know, for Tiri, or just that kind of like connection they're having. Maybe that's why she sacrificed her own journey and just went with him. But we
Mhm.
don't know. We don't know. So we'll definitely see. Maybe we can talk about that in predictions of what we think she's actually doing this for. So, um, we're kind of coming to the end of the episode. Basically, the Red Knights come and storm the boat, and this kind of scary man finds Cheery. He's pretty scary, and basically he knows that Cheery is magical. He's like, shaman blood. I know you have shaman blood. Um, and basically, this just sets off everything that's going to happen all the way to the end of the episode. He saves them from the boat and the Red Knights. He brings them to this cave, I guess, of I don't know what is. They find Lavinia, who went out to get wood or to get supplies, and they catch her. I wanted to talk about this because I want to get your perspective about Lavinia and Iona. So Iona was the one that caught Lavinia when she was like upside down, and she was kind of interrogating her. And we keep talking about this dynamic of like strong women in the show. So how did you feel about this exchange between the two of them?
It was a very good exchange to watch, actually. I mean, you're kind of seeing the brains of both sides kind of in this standoff in this head to head grilling each other, and it was so nice to watch. You're seeing these strong women face off. No, neither one of them are backing down, whether they are tied up, whether they don't know what's going on. Neither of them are backing down from this fight. They're going to, you know, prove their point, prove that they're right, and make sure that they get what they want out of the conversation. And I absolutely loved that. I loved how neither of them backed down, and both of them pretty much got their answer.
Yes. And we even had some fun comic relief too from Giuseppe right before that. He was singing his song again, our boy Jonah Lees. Shout out to Jonah, who's on the show with us. And yeah, I just love the whole dynamic between the novices all together, then of course like Tyrion and Lavinia. And now that we talked about we're seeing their interactions and we're seeing it intersect, I'm super excited to see how it's all gonna play out. So that leads us to the end of the episode. Basically, the scary guy was trying to kill Terry. He was basically burning him at the stake like this was a Salem witch trials, and he came for Terry's neck. But right when we think that it's over for Terry, he comes like in a blaze of glory out of the fire, becomes this almost um Fantastic Four, Chris Evans vibe of just completely ablaze, and he sets the place on fire, explodes, and that's how the episode ends with him falling to the ground. That was so wild, such a crazy roller coaster. What did you think about it?
That was so crazy to watch, and it's actually such a good contrast to episodes that we've seen prior. I mean, when they ran into the monks, you know, Turi was so trusting, and we thought that was going to come back and bite him in the butt, but it actually wound up helping him. And in this episode, we see how that actually did bite him in the butt. I mean, granted, he didn't really have many options to escape the ships from the Red Knight, but it was still a wrong call to trust this guy. I mean, like you said, the minute that you see him, you know that he's scary, you know that he's up to something. And so it was almost kind of like a no moment, because I really wanted the guy to try to help him. I really wanted him to try to save him. And it was the complete opposite. I mean, he was kind of like a sub villain of the show. And I'm so glad that Tiuri was able to, I guess, find his inner strength or gain some type of control over his power. I don't really know what was going on, because we know he doesn't really have that much control to be able to get himself out of that situation. It was just, it was definitely one of those hold your breath moments, because while he was doing the ceremony and trying to explain to Tiuri that he was trying to help him, I was definitely holding my breath. You know, I wanted to believe him. I really did. But it was just kind of like, you're explaining, but you're also chaining him to this table. There's fire. There's him. You know, we've gotten so protective over Tiuri that we don't want anything to happen to him. And even though he was able to, I guess, fight against the guy with these powers, he's still bleeding. We still have to help him. We still have to heal him in some type of way to finish this journey. So it's just kind of like, geez, what are we going to do now?
Yes, and it was crazy because I don't know, I still think that maybe it's just their connection they have. Anawar, the horse. I don't know if it's Tiri using his magic to summon him or just the horse knows when something's up, but he is the one that helped because he not only saved Lavinia, but that led Lavinia to come and save Tiri, basically saying, use your power to get out of this. And I thought that was such a strong moment to basically bring everything together and show the dynamic between all of them. So I absolutely loved how this episode ended. So that's it, guys. That's a recap of the episode. It was such a good one. And we have 2 more to go, and we can't wait.
Like action-packed battle, but it was important because it was Joan of Arc's last battle. And of course, we know Joan of Arc. She's a notable warrior, and this was her last military mission. This resulted in her being captured by an alliance of the British who were known as the Burgundians, and they actually captured her, and she was burned at stake for being a heretic. So this was an important move in the 100 Years' War, because like I said, this is a notable warrior, and this is the last time that she was able to battle. So it was, the French was able to come out on top, but unfortunately they lost one of their most notable, strong, courageous warriors of all time.
Absolutely.
No problem.
All right. Now, we don't have any news this week because this show has just been so amazing. And what we're just hoping for is a renewal. So Netflix, let us know ASAP. Maybe there's another story to be told. We're not at the end yet. So we'll see what happens at the end. If there's going to be a cliffhanger or if it's going to end on a happy note, we never know. But we always love seeing these kind of shows. So fingers crossed for maybe a season 2, maybe a different storyline. But with that in mind, let's just jump straight into some predictions. So what do you think is going to happen in the next 2 episodes?
I literally do not know what to expect from these next 2 episodes. I mean, you know, Netflix, you can see how many episodes you have to go. You can see when the end is near. And I'm just like, what is going to happen in these last 2 episodes? This is such a short series. It only has 6 episodes in this first season. And I just feel like there's so many questions that I need answered before this ends. And so I don't know. I definitely think that this episode kind of, like I said earlier, the storylines are starting to intersect. They're starting to cross paths. So I'm super excited to see, you know, everyone's storylines start to play into one another, and as to see, you know, what side they're going to take, because that's something that we also haven't seen from a lot of people. A lot of people in the series haven't really picked a side. They're just still trying to figure out what's going on, like we are. Even the novices don't even know what they're going to do. So it's going to be super interesting to see, you know, when this great battle happens, who's going to be on what side. And I think we might have some plot twists there. We might have some unlikely alliances coming in these next 2 episodes. I mean, there's so much going on. There's so much going on. What do you think?
I think that I 100% agree that there is so many storylines that are still unfolding before our eyes. And like you said, it's a short series, but I think we have these last 2, hopefully hour-long episodes that are going to wrap it all up for us really well. I mean, it's not really a prediction, but I do want to see more about Viridian. He's still very, very stern, very, very like super somber, and like he hasn't really given much away besides the fact that he's magical and he's a shaman and he kind of is all knowing, maybe, if that makes sense. But I want to see more of his backstory. I want to see how he became the general of the army. I want to see how he had this falling out with his father. And I want to especially see what he thinks about his father's proposal for him to marry Alianor, because I feel like he is one of those people that's like, because he's so power hungry, or from what I see, I feel like he's not gonna want the marriage because I feel like he's more so like, I don't have to marry her to get Dagonaut. I can just take it by force, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to rule with the queen. He wants to be the emperor, basically, all powerful, all ruling. So I think that's what's going to kind of come to a head. And maybe, like I mentioned last week, maybe we'll see Iridian and Alianor team up to kind of maybe defend Dagonaut or defend Evielen. And maybe we'll see Viridian being on the opposite side of everybody else because he just wants everything, you know? So maybe that's my prediction, that Viridian is kind of going to fight everybody and everyone's going to have to team up to beat him.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about this series is that it kind of seems like Viridian is the narrator of this series, which we don't really see coming from the villain of the series. You know, he's kind of the one that has been kind of explaining the narrative and explaining the prophecy. We've kind of been seeing that explained through his lens, which is pretty interesting because usually we kind of see it through maybe someone who is trying to make peace. We don't really see that on the villainous side. So I think that's a really unique quality to this show, is that the villain is the narrator. We're getting a lot of context from him.
For sure. I 100% agree. There's so much happening. He is, like I mentioned, all knowing. So that's probably why we're seeing what's happening through his kind of lens. He's looking at Tiuri, he's looking at his father and Alianor, you know, so we'll see how that goes. We'll see how it ends. But that's it, guys. We got 2 weeks. Amazing. I'm Bryant Santos. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok at the Bryant Santos. And again, catch us for our last 2 episodes of this after show at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.